Today, instead of our normally scheduled writing vlog, I am going to address the elephant in the room. There are two of them. The first is my obnoxious piece of bang. I have been a long-haired person for the majority of my life. When I say long-haired, I don't mean my current hair length, which is technically long-haired. I have had hair like down to my butt. I don't really know how to manage my hair at my current length. I got really annoyed because I grew my hair too long, so I chopped it all off. This was a mistake. I'm growing it out, now it's awkward, and in all my videos I look like I'm having a bad hair day. And I look like that because I am in fact having a bad hair day. Every day is a bad hair day. The other thing is AI. It's coming for you. Now, I don't mean that literally. Generative AI specifically is not coming for you. However, it is invading artistic spaces. It's invading writing spaces. And the effect that I'm seeing, and genuinely I don't know if this is really a trend or if I clicked on one thing and now the algorithm is feeding me the same thing over and over. But the last week or two, I have seen an awful lot of these are the red flags for generative AI in writing. I know that generative AI in art is also a thing. Well, I wouldn't call it art at that point, but that's beside the point. Today, I will be exclusively talking about writing. I am a writer. I have a published book, Showing Silver by Evelyn Linwood. And I am anti-generative AI. I am to the point where I put in my copyright page a message that I hope will prevent AI from being trained on my work. I also put my AI pledge in the front of my book. I will read it to you. This will be in the front of every book that I publish, although I'll change the title in every one. My AI pledge. I do not use generative AI in any stage of my writing process, nor will I ever do so. This applies to Showing Silver and every book that I will ever write or publish. Art is human. This is something that I believe in my bones. Okay? I have a problem with the AI stuff because of the theft aspect. I have a serious moral problem with that. I also have a real misgivings about, people. Art has a purpose, and by generating art with AI, you are removing the very human purpose of art. But that's beside the point. What I'm seeing is not actually people using AI to generate fiction. What I am seeing is people accusing people of using AI to generate fiction. And I have a list of red flags here that I would like to go over with you because some of them are a little bit yellow, but most of them are just, this is how writers write. Okay, the first one, and the one I have seen most common, the M dash. If you don't know what an M dash is, it is a longish dash in writing. You may have seen it used, like if someone has a side thought in the middle of a sentence, they will do an M dash. They'll type out the side thought and do another M dash. You may have seen it. If you've read fan fiction, I guarantee you've seen it. For whatever reason, a lot of fanfic writers love M dashes. A lot of published writers also love M dashes. It is a very common thing. I understand. I don't think that the people who are coming for the M dash are doing so maliciously. I think it's just sort of... So one of the arguments I've heard is that they don't know how to type an M dash, so clearly these writers aren't doing it because it must be some complicated keyboard shortcut, and that would be so inconvenient. No, An M dash is typed if you go to like the line of numbers on the top of your keyboard, and to the right of the 0 is the 2 little dashes. All you have to do is hit that button twice and hit spacebar. And that sounds like a lot, but it really isn't, because most writers, when they're typing, are like, the M dash isn't even, you don't have to think about it. You're just, oh, M dash. I use M dashes. I guarantee a lot of the people most likely to use M dashes are writers, ironically. Not so ironically. I think this is a terrible thing to call a red flag. The next one on the list is the semicolon. And the semicolon is my personal favorite piece of punctuation. And I know that makes me sound like I'm just down some deep, dark, nerdy, writerly rabbit hole. But I have loved the semicolon since I first learned to use it in 7th grade. And back then, I handwrote and my drafts were peppered with so many semicolons. It was painful to read, I'm sure, for anyone who loved me enough to try. But now I use them rarely, the way they're supposed to be used, I hope. When I go through like a second and third draft, I do tend to eliminate a lot of my semicolons because I always think I need more than I do. But that's what copy editing is. You go through, you fix the issues with drafting. Okay. But the semicolon I can understand more. A lot of people don't even know how to use it. If you aren't familiar with a semicolon, it is that little piece of punctuation that is like a dot on top and then a comma underneath. So it's used basically to connect two sentences that are related to each other. So when you do that, you basically replace the period in between them and you lowercase the first letter of the second sentence. And the semicolon will prevent run-on sentences, but more importantly, I love it because I feel personally that the semicolon is the most artistic piece of punctuation. When you connect two sentences, it genuinely changes the meaning, just a little bit, but it does change the meaning. And I understand why people are saying that semicolons might be a red flag for AI, but AI was trained, probably not all of them, but the majority of these large language models, or whatever they're called, have been trained on like books that existed. Now, some of them have been trained on public domain work, which still sketchy, but that does tend to be a little bit older work, and semicolons have fallen out of favor to some degree. So I would call this a yellow flag. Lots of writers still use semicolons. It's probably more common in AI than in not, if I'm honest with myself. But I will die on the hill of semicolons. I love them. And the next one, there is no way that you can call it a red flag. Commas. I see this everywhere. People are, if it has commas in it, it's AI generated. Have you read any book ever? I think that this one came about because I don't know if it's Gen Z or Gen Alpha. I'm a little bit out of touch right now. But the younger generation, possibly somewhere in between the two, like when they text, they're not using punctuation. I recently learned that apparently if I put a period after a sentence, I must be furious. No, I just text with grammar. But So I understand where this is coming from. In a lot of casual settings, commas are falling out of favor, especially with the youth. However, in novels, in books, the comma is going strong. Every book has commas. Unless someone literally set out, I'm going to write a book with no commas and super simple language. Okay, maybe. I could see it. Someone somewhere will do that for some sort of artistic reason. More power to them. Commas in general are not a red flag for AI. Now, another thing I see on the chopping block is the Oxford comma specifically. If you are not familiar with the Oxford comma, if you have a grouping of items, oh, I went to the store to get bread, milk, eggs, and toast. Or, I guess you can't get toast at the store. Whatever. The list will be separated by commas, all except for the last item and the second to last item. The comma is optional technically in English. Now, this comma that they add is called an Oxford comma. It does change the meaning of a sentence. I found an example for you because I am not feeling particularly creative at this moment, so I looked it up. It is on yourdictionary.com. There was this little image. Come meet Janet, comma, a clown, comma, and an acrobat. The picture is this guy surrounded by a woman, a clown, and an acrobat. Come meet Janet, comma, a clown and an acrobat. There's a picture of a guy with a woman who is both a clown and acrobat. You see how not including the comma there adds ambiguity, because you could mean either come meet these three people or come meet this person who is both of these things. And I don't think that this is malicious. I don't think people are coming for the Oxford comma because they hate writers or because they want to cause mayhem. I actually think that this one is one of the more understandable ones because the APA, I think it's APA, the style manual used by journalists. If you're not familiar with a style manual, it's like it's something used in editing that provides, oh, my face is going red and I don't know why. Oh well. It's something used, a style manual is something used by, when editing, to kind of help you determine like the ground rules and guidelines for things that can be grammatically correct, but stylistic choices. The one used, okay, so the style guide used by journalism generally is APA, I believe, Associated Press something or other. The style guide used by most publishing houses and inadvertently by most writers, even in self-publishing spaces, just because that's what editors are usually, like fiction editors are generally trained on, and B, because they have grown up reading fiction, they're reading fiction frequently, just because that's where their interests lay. So writers will tend to use the Chicago Manual of Style. This is not the whole thing, this is like one of those little study helpers. But the reason that that's relevant, in APA, the Oxford comma is not recommended. In the Chicago Manual of Style, it is. So if you're reading like journals, newspaper articles, even a lot of blogs tend to go by APA. So you will not see the Oxford comma very much if you are in that space. If you are in a fiction space, you tend to see the Oxford comma pretty consistently. So I think that this one is genuinely well-meaning. And AI does tend to be trained well, I don't know this for sure. I just know what I'm hearing. I know that a lot of AI is trained on large amounts of fiction. So this could be like a yellow-green flag, but most fiction writers that I know use the Oxford comma. This is one of those that writers will get very excited about. You hear people say about M dashes, you can pry the M dashes from my cold dead fingers. They will say the same thing about Oxford commas. It is, if you're an Oxford comma person, you get a little bit Oxford comma debates get heated. Yeah. Writers are weird. Don't mind us. Okay. The next thing on my list of red flags is groups of 3. Like lists that include milk, sugar, and butter. I don't know why all my examples are food today. Maybe I'm hungry. But you'll see lists like the flag is red, white, and blue. She was wearing a t-shirt, jeans, and long stockings. That was a weird example. But groups of 3. Now, I don't know where this originated from. It's good marketing to do a group of 3. The human brain likes groups of 3. People will write a group of 3. This is just... It just sounds nice. Everybody's doing this. Like, yeah, AI is doing it too, but that's because it was trained on people doing it. This isn't even a yellow flag. This is just the nature of groupings. People don't make random groups. We have numbers that we tend to prefer. A lot of people prefer 3s and 7s, and I don't know. I'm seeing groups of 3 called out a lot, and it's disturbing because if this is the metric by which we're accusing people of AI, everyone is going to be accused. The next thing I am seeing people say is parallel sentence structure. Now, if you aren't familiar with parallel sentence structure, this is using sort of the same phrasing. I've found an example on Purdue.edu. Okay. A parallel sentence would be: the salesman expected that he would present his product at the meeting, that he would have time to show his slide presentation, and that prospective buyers would ask him questions. It's just using the same word phrasing, like the same verb. It's a little hard to describe. Parallel sentences are not wrong. They are sometimes a little bit repetitive, but they are frequently used for artistic purposes. So maybe an author is trying to show a parallel between 2 things. It relates to things, like it makes them have the same level of importance or the same... It's hard to explain. But parallel sentence structure, I don't think is something that we should be looking for as a red flag for AI. This is something that writers have been encouraged to use. Basically, from the time you start learning to write, people tell you, oh, you should use parallel sentence structure for this one. Oh, when it's not even yellow, guys. The next item on my list actually scares me. Rare words are an AI red flag. When I say rare words, I mean like big words, not even just big words though, specific words. Like instead of saying a hot, humid day, maybe someone said it was muggy. This is just good adjectives, good verbs sometimes. So a lot of times, this is a real thing writers, like in the first draft, there will be tons of adverbs. For those of you who don't know what an adverb is, they are descriptors of verbs, basically. So, like if you say walk slowly, the slowly is the adverb. A lot of them end in ly. That's helpful. But adverbs are generally discouraged in creative writing. Not all of them are bad, but as a general rule, having a lot of adverbs can mean that you're choosing weak verbs, because most of your verbs should not require a modifier. Some of them might. Adverbs can be very artistic. I am not one of those anti-adverb people. I do think using them intentionally is important instead of using them for everything just to spice up your sentences. Who's done that? That's what editing's for. Anyway, I think a lot of the rare words are literally writers going in and replacing their adverbs with better verbs. So he walked arrogantly. They go in and they're like, he promenaded down the thing. It is the reason that this being an AI red flag, quote unquote, scares me. I genuinely think that people are seeing these lists of what is AI red flags and they are running away, specifically writers. Not all of them. Some of them aren't, but some of them are seeing these lists of what is generative AI red flags and changing the way that they write to avoid them. Do you want to live in a world where our language is dumbed down literally because people don't want to be accused of using generative AI? This isn't even a thing that AI is doing from what I've seen. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not interacting with AI as much as most people, to be honest. I haven't ever used ChatGPT even for funsies because I don't think it's fun. But this is the marrow of our language. I love using the word that is the exact right word. Like you will stare at a sentence. Okay. I'm not making sense. During the line editing phase of writing, this is when authors go back in and they look at their document, or maybe they have someone else do it. Some authors do, whatever. You look at your document, you go through, you change the wordings of things to make them flow better, flow nicer, be more precise, be more accurate, express what you were actually trying to say. Personally, I do my own line editing. Part of that is because I can't afford to pay someone. Line editing is expensive. But part of that is actually because I like it. So, using rare words, it's not even big words, it's just rare words. Using the word that is not the most common choice for the situation will change the tone of a book. It will change what was actually said. It changes the meaning of the sentence. And this one, not the Oxford comma, not the em dash, this is the one that AI can pry from my cold, dead fingers. Rare words are the spice of language. And also English has an awful lot of them because we like to sneak into alleys and, rob other languages. Okay, the last one, and probably the most legitimate AI red flag that I'm seeing is like unusual or odd phrasings, things that are similar to a saying, but then they skew off in an interesting direction. This one is the hardest one to describe and probably the most true, but it is also fairly common in writing by humans. So there's this, in particular in YA, People are being told to write voicey characters or voicey narrators. And a lot of that is getting creative with language. Sometimes it's just being sassy. Some of these characters are just fun to read. But some of them have like an interesting way of talking. So it's a distinct person. Voicey doesn't always mean odd, quirky phrasings, but it's fairly common in voicey writing. It's common in YA, but there's a lot of cross-pollination between genres, so I wouldn't say that it's like just YA. I think a lot of detective novels have really voicey leads. Yeah, but this is one, it's really hard to describe. So if you're used to looking for it, sure, you could probably find it. You could probably suss out, oh, this is most likely AI, this is most likely human, but that is walking a real thin line. That is a yellow flag, maybe, but it's very common in some genres. I personally would not be comfortable using that to be like, this was AI. For me, to actually accuse another writer of using AI, there are only two metrics that I will say, yes, that was AI. The first one is that the author said, oh, that was AI. And the second one is if they literally left an AI prompt in their book. Beyond that, no. I'm not doing the witch hunt. I'm not going after other writers. I hope no one goes after me because I use M-dashes, semicolons, commas, Oxford commas, groups of 3, parallel sentence structure, and rare words, and even sometimes odd and unusual phrasings. I'm a weirdo. I'm a silly weirdo. I like to say things in ways that other people have not said them. I don't use generative AI. I never will. A lot of authors do not use generative AI and never will, and they do all of these things. So please, guys, let's chill for a minute. Let's not accuse each other. Let's not, like, if you have the misfortune to buy a book that was written by AI, they're not good books. You're not gonna enjoy it. Genuinely, you might be like, oh, this is an interesting premise. And maybe it is, because maybe the author came up with a cool premise and typed it into ChatGPT or whatever. Said, write me a book about blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you've purchased a book written by AI. I'm sorry. It's going to suck. You're not going to enjoy it. You move on. You buy a book by a different author. You can't say, oh, this author definitely used AI because their book sucked. No, sometimes you just don't enjoy a book. Sometimes the book didn't even suck. It just wasn't, you weren't the target audience. Famously amazing books have 1-star reviews. And this is a wonderful thing because this tells you that there is a book out there for everyone. Because there are books with like 1.5 stars on Goodreads that have some 5-star reviews. There are books that I have read that I have said, this was a genuinely good book. I hated it. It's a thing. It happens. The thing that we shouldn't be doing is taking our personal, I didn't enjoy this book, or, oh, hey, this book had an interesting style to it, and saying, oh yeah, that's definitely AI. Because literally AI has only been like a big thing the last couple years. There are books that are 5 years old that are being accused of being generative AI. So, maybe don't. So the elephant in the room is not the AI. It's the people hunting the AI. It was never the elephant. It was the poachers. If you've watched this long, thank you. I know that this is a topic that I tend to get a little bit heated about. So I got a little bit wacky, a little bit ranty. But again, I appreciate you watching. If you weren't aware of some of these issues, I hope that you've learned something. If you are, or if you know another red flag that's not a red flag, feel free to pop it in the comments. Yeah, I hope to hear from you, and I hope that we can all sort of... The only reason that there's for lack of a better term, a little bit of a witch hunt going on, I think people are a little bit panicky about AI. Personally, I'm not... I mean, I worry about it, but I'm not black-pilled, for lack of a better term. I do think there are definitely concerns. My concerns mostly revolve around the human element, which we're in control of. So we're going to be okay, guys.